What would you do if your roommate destroyed your laptop the night before the most important presentation of your life? 8 months of work gone in 3 seconds. Your entire future shattered on a tile floor. That's exactly what happened to Nana in Lagos. But here's what nobody knew. The laptop Zara destroyed held more than just Nana's thesis. It held evidence of every crime Zara had ever committed, and neither of them knew it.
Fair African Tales. Subscribe and turn on the bell for new stories.
Nana's alarm screamed at 4:30 a.m., the same way it did every single day. 4:30, before the sun dared to show its face over Lagos, before the street hawkers set up their wares, before the Danfo buses began their chaotic symphony through the city streets. In that quiet darkness, while most of the city still slept, Nana was already awake, already moving, already working. Because for Nana, sleep was a luxury she couldn't afford, and rest was something she'd earn after her thesis defense. If she survived that long. She pulled herself from the thin mattress on the floor of the room she shared with her roommate Zara, careful not to make noise, though she knew Zara wouldn't wake even if she tried. Zara never woke before noon. Why would she, when you're the daughter of one of Lagos's wealthiest oil merchants? When your father's name opens doors before you even knock, when money flows like water from a broken pipe, morning is whenever you decide it is. But Nana knew morning intimately. She knew the exact texture of 4:30 a.m. exhaustion. She knew how your bones ache when you've survived on 4 hours of sleep for months. She knew the weight of a laptop bag that contains your entire future, every hope, every dream, every sacrifice your family made to put you through school. That laptop, old and battered, with a screen that flickered when you opened it past 90 degrees, and a battery that died after 45 minutes, that laptop was everything. It held her master's thesis, 8 months of research on microfinance solutions for rural women, data collected from 12 villages across 3 states, interviews transcribed word by word, analysis that had cost her countless nights and infinite tears. No cloud backup, because cloud storage cost money, and money was something Nana counted in 10 naira increments. She clutched that laptop now as she moved through their apartment, past Zara's designer handbags scattered across the living room floor like discarded candy wrappers, past the expensive shoes that cost more than Nana's entire semester fees, past the half-eaten takeout from the night before that Zara had left on the table, expecting Nana to clean up. Always expecting, always assuming. The University of Lagos campus was already stirring when Nana arrived at 6 a.m., her first tutoring session of the day scheduled for 6:30. She tutored undergraduates in statistics and research methodology, squeezed in 3 sessions before her own 9 a.m. class, then worked the lunch shift at the campus cafe, then attended seminars, then back to tutoring, then library, then home by 10 p.m. if she was lucky, midnight if she wasn't. 7 days a week, no breaks, no mercy. Because the scholarship that brought her here covered tuition, nothing else. Not rent, not food, not the laptop that was dying a slow death despite her prayers and gentle handling. But here's what you need to understand about Nana. Despite everything, despite the exhaustion that lived in her bones, despite the hunger that sometimes kept her awake more than her ambitions, despite sharing an apartment with a roommate who treated her like hired help, Nana was brilliant. Not just smart, brilliant. Her thesis supervisor, Professor Adeyemi, had told her privately that her research was the most innovative work he'd seen in 15 years of teaching, the kind of work that gets published in international journals. The kind of work that changes policy. The kind of work that transforms lives. If she could just make it to her defense, just one more week. One more week and everything changes. One more week and all this struggle, all this sacrifice, all these 4:30 a.m. mornings, they all mean something. But fate and wickedness have their own timelines, and Nana's week was about to get much, much shorter. Emmanuel noticed her first, of course. He always did. Emmanuel, her boyfriend of 2 years, the IT specialist who worked at a fintech startup in Victoria Island. The man who loved her not despite her struggles, but because he saw in her something she sometimes forgot she possessed. Strength that couldn't be bought, intelligence that couldn't be inherited, dignity that couldn't be stolen. He'd been at the campus library, waiting to surprise her between her classes, and he watched her now, hunched over her laptop at a corner table, her fingers flying across the keyboard even as her eyes fought to stay open. He approached quietly, placed a bottle of water and a meat pie beside her laptop. She looked up, exhausted but smiling, that smile that made everything worthwhile. They talked in whispers about her thesis, about her defense scheduled for exactly 1 week from today, about the future they were building brick by careful brick. Zara woke at 1 p.m. that same day, irritated that she'd woken even that early. She scrolled through her phone, through Instagram posts of her friends vacationing in Dubai, through WhatsApp messages in a group chat she'd created specifically to mock Nana. The group was called The Help and featured Zara's 3 closest friends, all daughters of wealth, all united in their contempt for anyone who had to actually work for what they had. The latest messages made her smile. They were planning their next move, their next way to make Nana's life just a little bit harder, just a little bit more miserable. Because to Zara, Nana wasn't a person. She was entertainment. She was proof of Zara's superiority. She was a reminder that some people are born to rule and others born to serve. But there was one problem with Nana. One crack in Zara's perfect narrative of superiority. Emmanuel. Emmanuel, who was handsome and successful and kind and completely, utterly, infuriatingly uninterested in Zara. She'd tried everything. The accidental touches, the suggestive comments, the tight clothes and expensive perfume. She'd even tried direct approaches, asking him to help her with her phone, her laptop, her car. And every single time, Emmanuel was polite but distant, professional but cold, kind but unavailable. And every single time, it drove Zara deeper into rage. How dare he choose Nana over her? Nana, with her second-hand clothes and her tired eyes and her cheap phone. Nana, who couldn't afford cloud storage or new shoes or a single day off. What did Nana have that Zara didn't? Nothing. Nothing except the one thing Zara's money couldn't buy. Emmanuel's heart. And that's when jealousy, that poison that rots everything it touches, took root in Zara's soul and began to grow. Over the next few days, the apartment became a pressure cooker. Nana, stressed beyond measure with her defense, now 5 days away, worked 20-hour days. Zara, feeding off Nana's stress like a vulture, increased her cruelty. She played music at 3 a.m. when Nana was trying to sleep. She used all the hot water before Nana could shower. She left rotting food in the kitchen and blamed Nana when their landlady, Mama Chidi, complained about the smell. And Mama Chidi, sweet on Zara because Zara paid triple the rent and always arrived with gifts and cash, believed Zara every time. But Zara's masterpiece, her true work of art in wickedness, happened 2 weeks before the defense. Nana had been in class, and Zara's own laptop had crashed, needed repairs. In a moment of false civility, Nana had told Zara she could use her laptop while she was at school. Zara had used it all right. She'd stored some personal files there temporarily, documents and screenshots, and messages she wanted to keep, while her computer was being fixed. Then, when her laptop returned, she'd deleted the files from Nana's computer. Or so she thought. Because what Zara didn't know about technology could fill libraries. She'd deleted the files from view, but not from the hard drive. They were still there, buried in the system, waiting to be found by anyone who knew where to look. And Emmanuel knew exactly where to look. The day came, 4 days before Nana's defense. Emmanuel showed up while Nana was in class, exactly as he'd planned, and quickly ran some programs on the Nana's lagging laptop to ensure smooth presentation on the defense day. 3 days before the defense, Nana began her final preparations. The stress was crushing. She couldn't eat, could barely sleep. Her hands shook when she typed, but she was close, so close. 3 more days, 72 more hours. She could do this. She had to do this. And then, the day before her defense, Emmanuel called. He wanted to come over that evening, help her with final preparations, make sure she was ready, make sure she was okay. Nana, grateful for his support, agreed immediately. 6 p.m. He'd bring food, they'd review her presentation, she'd practice her defense. Everything would be fine. Zara overheard the call, and something inside her snapped. It wasn't about the dishes in the sink, though that's how the argument started. It wasn't about Nana's books on the shared table, though Zara screamed about that too. It wasn't even about the apartment, the noise, the space, the inconvenience. It was about Emmanuel. Emmanuel coming over. Emmanuel supporting Nana. Emmanuel choosing Nana again and again and again. Choosing poverty over wealth. Choosing struggle over comfort. Choosing Nana over Zara. The rage that had been building in Zara for months, fed by jealousy and entitlement and a lifetime of getting everything she wanted, erupted. The argument escalated. Voices raised, words like weapons. Nana tried to de-escalate, tried to walk away, tried to focus on what mattered. Her defense, tomorrow, less than 24 hours. But Zara followed her, screaming about respect, about cleaning, about gratitude, about knowing one's place. And when Nana finally snapped back, finally defended herself, finally said what she'd been swallowing for months, Zara's eyes landed on the one thing she knew would hurt most. The laptop, sitting on Nana's bed, open, screen glowing with thesis data, 8 months of work, 12 villages, hundreds of hours, infinite sacrifice, everything. Time slowed. Nana saw Zara's hand reach out, saw her grab the laptop, saw the malice in her eyes. Nana screamed no, but the word moved through air like honey, too slow, too late. Zara lifted the laptop high, and with a smile, a genuine smile of pure wickedness, she threw it down. The sound of plastic and glass shattering on ceramic tile echoed through the apartment like a gunshot. The screen exploded into spiderweb cracks. The body split open. The hard drive, that precious hard drive containing everything, made a sound no hard drive should ever make, a grinding, a clicking, the sound of death. Nana dropped to her knees, hands shaking, trying to piece it together, trying to wake it, trying to save it. Nothing. Black screen, dead weight, gone. Everything, gone. Her thesis, gone. Her research, gone. 8 months of interviews, transcripts, analysis, graphs, citations, drafts, gone. The defense scheduled for tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. gone. Her academic future, gone. Her scholarship depending on this graduation, gone. Every sacrifice her family made, gone. Every 4:30 a.m. morning, gone. Every skipped meal, every exhausted night, every moment of hope, gone. Nana looked up at Zara, tears streaming down her face, and whispered, "Please, please help me recover it, please." And Zara, standing over her like a queen over a beggar, laughed. Actually laughed. Maybe you should have been more careful with your things. Maybe you should have backed it up. Oh, wait, you couldn't afford it, could you? Nana begged, offered to pay somehow, to borrow money, anything. Data recovery services existed. Maybe the files could be saved. Maybe there was hope. Please, please. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Everything depends on this. Please. Zara's response was ice. If you make trouble about this, if you tell Mama Chidi anything except that you dropped it yourself, I'll tell her you attacked me. I'll tell her you've been stealing from me. She already thinks you're beneath me. She'll believe me. She always believes me. So clean up this mess and stay out of my way. She walked into her room and locked the door, turned her music up loud, left Nana kneeling on the floor surrounded by shattered plastic and shattered dreams. The sun set on Lagos that evening, painting the sky in oranges and reds, beautiful and indifferent to the devastation happening in a small apartment in Yaba. Nana sat on the floor for an hour, not moving, barely breathing, her mind trying to process what had just happened. Less than 24 hours until her defense. No thesis, no data, no backup, no money, no options, no future. Everything she'd worked for, destroyed in seconds by someone who'd never worked for anything in her entire life. And here's the question I want you to consider, the question Nana couldn't yet know the answer to. When wickedness destroys what seems irreplaceable, when cruelty takes what cannot be restored, when evil appears to triumph completely and absolutely. Is that truly the end of the story? Or is it possible that in the very act of destruction, in the very moment of apparent victory, wickedness plants the seeds of its own exposure? What do you think happens next? 6 p.m. Emmanuel's knock echoed through the apartment like a judge's gavel. And with that knock, everything was about to change. Nana sat frozen on the floor, surrounded by the shattered remains of her laptop, the shattered remains of her future. Her hands trembled, her vision blurred with tears. How do you explain to someone that everything they helped you fight for, everything they believed in, everything they sacrificed alongside you, is now just broken plastic and dead circuits on a tile floor? How do you say those words out loud? She opened the door, and the moment Emmanuel saw her face, tear-stained and hollow, he knew. Something terrible had happened, something devastating. She didn't need to speak. He stepped inside, closed the door, and saw it. The laptop. His eyes moved from the shattered device to Zara's closed bedroom door, music blasting from inside, and he understood everything. "Tell me what happened," he said quietly, his voice carrying that dangerous calm that comes before a storm. And Nana told him. Every word, every threat, every moment of cruelty that led to this destruction. As she spoke, Emmanuel's jaw tightened, his fists clenched, but he said nothing. He just listened, because that's what she needed, someone to witness her pain. When she finished, her voice breaking on the last word, she whispered, "It's over, Emmanuel, everything. 9 a.m. tomorrow and I have nothing, no thesis, no research. 8 months gone, my defense is impossible now." She looked at him with eyes that had given up hope. It's over. And that's when Emmanuel did something Nana didn't expect. He smiled. Not a mocking smile, not a dismissive smile. a smile that held a secret, a smile that carried hope. "Wait here," he said. "I need to get something from my car." Now, have you ever had a moment where everything seemed lost, where darkness seemed absolute, and then someone said words that made no sense but somehow carried the weight of salvation? That's where Nana was, confused, disbelieving, watching Emmanuel walk out the door, wondering if grief had finally broken his mind too. He returned 5 minutes later with his backpack. He sat beside her on the floor, right there among the shattered pieces, and pulled out an external hard drive. Just a small black rectangle. Ordinary, unremarkable. But in that moment, it might as well have been made of pure gold. 2 weeks ago, Emmanuel began, his voice soft but steady. "I noticed your laptop was dying. The fan, the freezing, the flickering screen. You were too stressed to notice, but I saw it. And I got worried. Worried that it would crash right before your defense. Worried that you'd lose everything." He held up the drive. "So while you were in class one day, I cloned your entire hard drive. Everything, every file, every folder. I was going to surprise you after your defense, give you a new laptop with everything transferred. I wanted it to be special." The words took a moment to penetrate Nana's shock. Then, like a drowning person breaking the surface, she gasped. "You mean my thesis, my research? Everything is here," Emmanuel confirmed. "Safe, backed up, recoverable." Nana's sob of relief echoed through the apartment, louder than Zara's music, louder than her own despair moments before. She grabbed Emmanuel, held him like he was life itself, and cried. But this time, her tears carried joy, carried hope, carried the future she thought had been stolen. She wasn't finished. The defense could happen. Everything she'd worked for still existed. But here's where the story takes a turn, because salvation was just the beginning. Justice was waiting in the wings. Emmanuel set up his own laptop, connected the external drive, and began transferring files. Nana watched the progress bar like it was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen. 60%, 70%, 80%. Each percentage point was a piece of her life returning from the dead. But as Emmanuel navigated through the folders, organizing her thesis files, his eyes caught something strange. Folders he didn't recognize, files that didn't belong to Nana. "What's this?" he murmured, more to himself than to her. He clicked open a folder labeled Backup Personal. Inside were screenshots, photos, documents. His IT instincts, trained to notice anomalies, went on alert. "Nana, did you save any of Zara's files on your laptop?" Nana looked confused. "Weeks ago, when her laptop crashed, I let her use mine for a day. Maybe she saved something then?" Emmanuel's fingers moved across the keyboard, opening files, scanning contents, and with each file he opened, his expression darkened. Screenshot after screenshot of WhatsApp conversations. A group chat called The Help. Messages that made his blood boil. Zara and her friends, mocking Nana, planning ways to sabotage her, laughing about stealing money from her purse, celebrating the ruined research books they'd blamed on Nana. Every act of cruelty documented, every lie preserved, every plot exposed. But it got worse. Email exchanges showing Zara paying students to write her term papers. Bank transactions tracking money stolen from Nana over months. Photos Zara had taken of coffee she'd deliberately spilled on Nana's books, sent to her friends with laughing emojis. Evidence of academic fraud. Evidence of theft. Evidence of calculated, sustained wickedness. Do you see the irony? Do you see the poetry? Zara destroyed the laptop that contained the evidence of her own crimes. She smashed the one device that held proof of every terrible thing she'd done. She thought she was destroying Nana's future. She had no idea she was preserving the record of her own wickedness. Emmanuel turned the screen toward Nana. "You need to see this." And as Nana read through file after file, her shock transformed into something else. Something harder, something that looked like justice preparing to speak. "She's been planning this," Nana whispered, "for months. The books, the money, everything. It wasn't random cruelty, it was calculated." She looked at Emmanuel. "What do I do with this?" Now, here's where Nana faced a choice. She could focus only on her thesis, on passing her defense, on moving forward and leaving Zara behind. The path of least resistance, the safe choice. Or she could do something more difficult. Something that required courage. She could expose the truth. What would you do? If someone had tormented you for months, stolen from you, sabotaged you, destroyed your property, and then you found evidence of all their crimes, would you use it? Or would you let it go? Would you choose peace or justice? Nana spent that entire night working. First, recovering and organizing her thesis. Second, carefully documenting every piece of evidence against Zara. Screenshots backed up to 3 different locations, files organized chronologically, a clear timeline of abuse and fraud. Emmanuel helped her, working until dawn, both of them fueled by coffee and righteous anger, and the sweet taste of truth finally coming to light. At 8 a.m., 1 hour before her defense, Nana stood in their apartment fully prepared. Her thesis printed and bound. Her presentation loaded on Emmanuel's laptop. Her notes organized, her mind sharp despite no sleep. And in a separate folder on a USB drive, every piece of evidence against Zara, ready to be presented. Zara emerged from her bedroom at 8:30, yawning, probably expecting to see Nana broken and defeated. Instead, she saw Nana dressed professionally, laptop bag over her shoulder, standing tall. The confusion on Zara's face was delicious. "Going somewhere?" Zara asked mockingly. "I thought you had nothing to present." Nana smiled. Not a weak smile, not a defeated smile. A smile that promised something was coming. "My defense is at 9. I'll be back this afternoon. We need to talk." The defense itself was transcendent. Every question from the panel, Nana answered with clarity and confidence. Every challenge to her methodology, she countered with data. Every doubt about her conclusions, she erased with evidence. Her research on microfinance solutions for rural women wasn't just good, it was groundbreaking, transformative. The kind of work that gets published, that influences policy, that changes lives. The panel conferred for only 10 minutes before the head professor smiled and said the words that made everything worthwhile. "Congratulations, you've passed with distinction." Nana walked out of that room with her head high, with her future secure, with 8 months of sacrifice validated. But she wasn't finished. Not yet. Because justice delayed is not justice denied, and Zara's reckoning was waiting. She returned to the apartment at 2 p.m. with Emmanuel and made a phone call. "Mama Chidi, can you please come to the apartment? There's something important you need to see." Within an hour, their landlady arrived, expecting another complaint about dishes or noise. Instead, she found Nana, Emmanuel, and Zara in the living room, tension thick enough to cut with a knife. "What is this about?" Mama Chidi asked, already annoyed. But then Nana opened her laptop and began to speak, calmly, methodically, presenting evidence piece by piece. The destroyed laptop, the recovered files, the WhatsApp conversations, the theft documentation, the academic fraud. Every crime laid bare. Zara's face transformed from confusion to panic to rage. She tried to deny it, tried to claim the files were fake, tried to use her usual weapons of money and influence. But the timestamps, the phone numbers, the metadata, they all told the truth. And even Mama Chidi, who had favoured Zara for so long, couldn't ignore what was right in front of her eyes. The question now was simple. What happens when wickedness is finally exposed? When cruelty can no longer hide? When justice, delayed but determined, finally arrives? So the question hanging in the air was this. Would Mama Chidi, who had favoured Zara for so long, who had taken her gifts and extra rent money, who had dismissed Nana's complaints time and time again, would she finally choose truth over profit? Would she finally see what had been happening under her own roof? The silence in that room was heavy. Mama Chidi stared at the laptop screen, scrolling through evidence that couldn't be denied. Screenshots with dates, messages with phone numbers she could verify, bank records showing systematic theft. And slowly, like ice melting under hot sun, her expression changed from annoyance to disbelief to disgust. "Zara," Mama Chidi said quietly, and there was something in her voice that made everyone go still. "Is this true, all of this?" Zara tried one more time. She pulled out her weapon of choice, the one that had always worked before. "Mama Chidi, you know me. You know my family. We've been good to you. This girl, she's just jealous because she has nothing. She probably made all this up because she's angry I won't clean up after her anymore." But Mama Chidi wasn't listening to the words anymore. She was looking at the evidence, cold, digital, undeniable. And perhaps for the first time, she was also looking at Nana, really looking at her, seeing not a poor scholarship student to be dismissed, but a young woman who had endured months of abuse in silence. "Pack your things," Mama Chidi said to Zara. "You have 1 week to find another place." The shock on Zara's face was absolute. "You can't be serious. My father pays you triple what she pays. You're going to choose her over me, over money." "I'm choosing truth," Mama Chidi replied, her voice firm now, stronger. "And I'm choosing to stop pretending I didn't see what was happening because it was convenient for me to look away. 1 week, Zara, that's all." But the story doesn't end there. Because wickedness, when exposed, doesn't just fade quietly into the night. It fights back. And Zara's family had resources. Within hours, Zara's parents arrived at the apartment, her father in his expensive agbada, her mother dripping in gold jewelry, both ready to throw money at the problem until it disappeared. They came expecting to intimidate, to negotiate, to make this inconvenient truth go away. But Emmanuel had prepared for this. He'd backed up the evidence in multiple locations. He'd documented everything with timestamps and metadata. And when Zara's parents demanded to see proof, he showed them. What happened next was something Zara had probably never witnessed in her entire privileged life. Her father's face darkened with shame as he read through the messages. Her mother, reading the evidence of theft and cruelty and academic fraud, began to cry. Not for Nana, for herself, for the daughter she'd raised who had become this. "We had no idea," Zara's mother whispered. "We gave her everything, everything. How did she become this person?" And her father, a man who had built an empire through hard work, who had clawed his way up from nothing to become one of Lagos's elite, looked at his daughter with something worse than anger, disappointment. "You've been paying people to write your papers. You've been stealing, sabotaging another student's work." His voice was ice. everything we've given you, and you learned nothing about dignity, nothing about work, nothing about respect. The punishment was swift and severe. Zara's allowance was cut off completely. The job her father had promised her at his company, the safety net she'd always assumed would catch her, was revoked. She would move back home under their supervision until she could prove she understood the value of earning what you have. And more than that, her father personally called the University of Lagos administration and reported the academic fraud, refusing to use his influence to protect her. "Let her face the consequences," he said. "It's the only way she'll learn." The university opened an investigation immediately, and when they discovered that Zara had indeed paid for at least 4 term papers over 2 semesters, the Academic Integrity Board had no choice. Her degree was placed under review, her graduation delayed indefinitely, her reputation on campus destroyed. 3 days after her defense, Nana received an email from an organization she'd never heard of, the West African Women's Economic Empowerment Initiative. They'd had representatives at her thesis defense, there as part of a university partnership program, scouting for innovative research. And they'd been watching, listening, taking notes. The email was simple but life-changing. Your research on microfinance solutions for rural women represents exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. We'd like to offer you a position as a research coordinator with a starting salary of 800,000 naira per month, full benefits, and funding to continue your work across Nigeria. Are you interested? Nana read that email 5 times before she believed it was real. 800,000 naira per month. More money than she'd ever imagined earning. Enough to help her family, enough to live comfortably, enough to continue the work she was passionate about. She called Emmanuel, sobbing again, but this time with pure joy. Everything she'd suffered, everything she'd endured, every 4:30 a.m. morning, every sacrifice, it had all led to this moment. She accepted the position immediately. Within a month, Nana moved into her own apartment, modest but comfortable, paid for with her first salary, no roommate, no drama. Just peace and space to work and dream. Emmanuel helped her move in, and as they unpacked boxes, she looked at him and said, "You saved me, not just my thesis, you saved my entire future." But Emmanuel shook his head. "No, you saved yourself. I just made sure your work wasn't lost. Everything else, the brilliance, the resilience, the strength to face what Zara did and demand justice, that was all you." Meanwhile, Zara sat in her childhood bedroom, the room she thought she'd escaped, scrolling through social media and seeing former classmates celebrating graduation, celebrating new jobs, celebrating futures she'd taken for granted and lost. Her friends, the ones who had mocked Nana with her, had quietly distanced themselves. Nobody wants to be associated with exposed wickedness. She'd applied for jobs, but her reputation preceded her. The investigation was still ongoing. Her degree hung in limbo. And for the first time in her life, Zara understood what it meant to face consequences. Some say she changed after that. Others say she just got better at hiding her cruelty. The truth, as always, is complicated. But what matters is this: she could no longer harm Nana. That power was gone forever. 6 months later, Nana was featured in a national newspaper for her work with rural women's cooperatives. The article included a photo of her in the field, surrounded by women entrepreneurs whose lives were being transformed by microfinance solutions she'd helped implement. She sent a copy to her parents, to her siblings, to everyone who had sacrificed so she could chase this dream. And she sent one to Professor Adeyemi with a note that said simply, "Thank you for believing in me when I couldn't believe in myself." Mama Chidi called Nana one evening, months after everything had settled. "I need to apologize," she said. "I saw what was happening and I looked away because it was easier. Because Zara's money made my life comfortable. I'm sorry." And Nana, who had every right to hold on to bitterness, chose grace instead. "Thank you for finally choosing what was right," she said. "That's what matters." So here's what this story teaches us, the lesson woven into every thread of this tale. Wickedness carries within it the seeds of its own destruction. Zara's cruelty backfired in the most poetic way possible. She destroyed the very laptop that contained evidence of all her crimes. What she meant for evil became the catalyst for Nana's breakthrough and her own exposure. And Nana's response to that cruelty, her choice to pursue justice with evidence rather than revenge with emotion, that's what transformed a moment of destruction into a testimony of resilience. The universe has a way of balancing scales, but only when we have the courage to place truth on those scales. Only when we refuse to let wickedness hide in shadows. Only when we choose justice over convenience. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced someone who tried to destroy what you built? Have you ever had a moment where everything seemed lost, only to discover that help was closer than you knew? Or maybe you've witnessed wickedness expose itself through its own actions. Share your story in the comments below. Tell us about a time when justice arrived, even if it took longer than you hoped. And if this story resonated with you, if it reminded you that resilience outlasts cruelty, hit that like button and subscribe, because we have more stories of triumph, truth, and the beautiful poetry of justice. Remember, your struggle is not your end. It's often the beginning of your greatest breakthrough. Stay strong, stay true, and never let anyone destroy your dreams without a fight.